Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and this is going to be a Bay talks about / reacts to / film nerd analysis of the new World of Warcraft cinematic Safe Haven. I'm going to watch it live with you right here. This is my first time watching it and react to it and talk about it, and then probably go back through and scrub around and find some things and talk about it in like a directorial editor kind of way, because that's kind of my thing, right? However, the director of this piece, I did get to sit down and talk to at BlizzCon this past year. Marc Messenger also put together Lost Honor, as well as lots of the other cinematics in the World of Warcraft universe. You can go check that video out on my YouTube channel. As well, the other director over at Blizzard for in-game cinematics, Terran Gregory, talked to him about his Terror of Darkshore. That was also at BlizzCon this last year. You can go check that out if you'd like. And there are additional videos in this same vein for the Warbringers and the Old Soldier cinematic also. So I've kind of done a handful of these. All the links will be down below in the description box, or later right here on the YouTube channel that you're currently watching this video on. But I'll make it easier for you. It's not your first rodeo. Just click down below and then you click the button and then it goes to the other video if you want to see me talking to the Marc Messenger one and the Terran Gregory ones, because I get to talk to the actual directors. Really funny. Really good stuff. Tons of information about how they put these together. And without further ado, let me kill the background music. Get out of here. Shh. Let me go over here. Start watching this. The whole point of why I'm doing this is to sit here and watch this. Enough final shill TV. All right. Again, it's the first time I've seen this. I have not watched this yet. I have not watched any of my friends' videos about this yet. I have no idea what this is. I've seen some memes, but of course, who hasn't seen them? And they're really good. But anyway, let's go. That's not symbolic or anything. Outland Oshugun? Nagrand? Look at that face.
So, this is home now.
Home. Family.
And where are they?
Not far.
This world. Well, it looks good. But it's wrong. Broken. Falling apart. Just like the Horde. Do you know? Do you know what she's done while you've been hiding?
I left that life behind. I'm no one's savior. I will not lead the Horde.
I didn't ask. But I hoped you would at least fight for it.
You were followed!
I followed them.
That was goosebumpy. Okay.
You and I, we don't get to hide.
Well, okay then. Where to begin? Oh man. So good gracious. The first thing that I kind of got there was a very, and this is not a problem at all, right? This is not like a bad thing, but from a directorial and a narrative sense, this had a very kind of Wall-E vibe, if that makes sense. Maybe it does to me. In the not a lot of dialogue, right? Very much that these two characters don't need to say a whole lot to each other. And man, I wonder if they did any facial capturing or anything like that to make these on the voice actors at all. Just a lot of the subtle things. I think they probably didn't. Again, going back to the other video that I interviewed Marc about how they make these pre-rendered cinematics, the real lifelike ones, which can they just stop making these short ones and just make a full-fledged movie? Yeah? Let me know in the comments down below if that's just that. I mean, we all think that. We all think that, but I'm just saying it again. I asked Marc about that, so that's just more like back plugging, because I talk about this with the actual directors, right? But this cinematic has a lot of just uncommunicated conversation. It didn't need to be said. A lot of one-liners, which also directly to me wonders that they only got Chris in the VO booth for a few hours, right? He came in to say hi and then like throw him in the booth, and he had, 3 pages of sides to read for this. If less than that, 2 pages maybe. Normally in film terminology, about a page of script is a minute of footage, but that also doesn't necessarily translate. Usually does in like normal dialogue sequences, because obviously think of like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, the page could say, and the Battle of Helm's Deep happens. It's 40 minutes long. That's on one page, right? So depends on what you're talking about there, right? Different times of how long something would act, but for dialogue purposes anyway, about a minute of on screen is about a page of dialogue. And man, I know I leave on this shot first, so I'm gonna probably go backwards through this or just jump around. I don't know how long I'm gonna do this for, but man, there was some back and forth when I first started hearing the murmurs about this yesterday that he's gonna pick up Doomhammer, and we would have been like, oh, yawn. But this picture is very much, if you haven't seen it already, so I actually don't have this prepped right here. How's it's the whole like father like son meme that people showed off, because Durotan specifically in the, I don't know if the shot from the Warcraft film is anywhere that I can just look up, but historically this is what his dad did, right? There is the artwork, and I'm trying to find a picture where it's not totally squished. But yeah, there's the artwork that comes into play here that has Durotan standing there with his big Frostwolf axe. And that's super iconic to how he stood. And now his son is doing the same thing, right? So that's the big parallel here. It's showing not him becoming his father, but at least that sort of noble orc stance. But again, I guess it depends on where the art was framed from. See, because here's Durotan. Let me shrink this down for you. Get out of here. And there's Thrall, right? So it's just a reverse, essentially. But that's just this is just art to the actual cinematic. But yeah, real talk. Orc nipples. I wonder how much spoken dialogue is actually in this. There's a lot of back and forth as well about what I was hearing about the rogues. And also gross. There is a lot of detail in this Forsaken armor. That is for sure. And just how the Forsaken look. They're corpses, right?
You were followed.
We need a script. We need a script breakdown about how much dialogue is actually spoken in here. Also, really, really cool line that Varrock followed the assassins that Sylvanas sent. Now, we have no reason to distrust that from Saurfang, right? We have no reason to believe that they followed him or he followed them, kind of a deal. It did show that he grabbed the one in stealth here after he vanishes. She or he? She, yeah, Crunk. Grabbed it in the vanish. But also, rogues are pretty squishy, yeah? This is a rogue versus shaman. This would not happen like this in the game. The rogue would win. Rogue versus warrior, though? The warrior probably wins. I don't know. Who does a lot of duels in World of Warcraft right now? Also, the way his arms are positioned in this, I'm really curious. The way his arms are positioned, he's grabbing... Oh my goodness. Because it looks like he grabbed her waist. Because where his arm is positioned right there, right? He grabbed her waist and then just apparently broke the middle of her back. Not even broke her neck, but broke her back. I guess used the fulcrum with her head and just cracked her in half. When are warriors going to get that ability? Because you can't do any unarmed abilities in World of Warcraft right now. You're just using your weapon all the time, right? But that's crazy. But look at the one thing I was looking at here. Shout out again. This is just a big thing that is prevailing wins sort of in the overall for World of Warcraft. The game itself and the cinematics is that the art team and the passion and the talent and the attention to detail. Look at Varrock's boots. Look at his crazy armored spiked, because he's an orc, boots. They are beat to heck. My goodness. Just all the little tiny details. And also look at the armor, the leather that the rogue is wearing. Her bony fingers sticking out. Man. Unbelievable. Bit of ragdoll physics. It's probably all hand animated because when I talk to Marc, again, they don't use a lot of simulations. They just hand animate everything, which no, thank you. Look at that face. Look at that face. Interesting parallel between these two characters, but we'll keep going backwards here. We're at the rogue section. Those daggers also look really flimsy. Don't know how much damage they would do. I don't know, but I guess they're really, really stealthy. Is that actually a dagger in the game? I'm pretty sure that's a dagger you can get in the game. Also, how many of you play rogues right now are trying to make a transmog in game that's really similar to this? How many of you? Be honest. At least 7 of you are doing a transmog like this, if there's something that looks like that in the game. And for the orcs, we can do this soon. I mean, I guess if I race swapped with a toy to an orc, but for the horde side, because you can hide everything but pants in the upcoming patch. So you can make a transmog that looks just like Thrall. Man. There's so many... Look at that shot. Oh, boy, oh, boy. The one part that I saw throughout this entire thing, I'm kind of like skimming back through to see if I was correct, is the shots. This is YouTube compressed footage too. This is compressed to whatever max bitrate YouTube will let out there. I would love to see some of these without, get the mouse off the screen, Adam, you madman. I would love to see these not compressed, the hard renders from Blizzard, like on a cinematic screen. Could you imagine how much better this looks? And it already looks so good. Already looks so good. The light nod to, yeah, I was looking for this frame. Do you know what she's done? And that goes right back to the previous two cinematics, tying it all together. Both the launch of the expansion cinematic and, of course, the old soldier cinematic that I did a breakdown through as well, and we talked a lot about. That's his son's necklace, right? They threw in the fire that our boy Zappy Boy Zakan, right? Zakan gave back to him and took it out of the fire, gave it back to him. Look at the hair detail. Even like the racked focus, because you can tell that this section of the shot right here is in focus. It's like right there. It's not even the whole bone structure in focus, because you can see that the focus on his hair here is way more prevalent than his focus here. So the rack focus comes into play. I wonder if it actually does rack focus or if it just pans. Oh, it's a camera move. It's a push.
I left that life behind.
Yeah, it's a dolly, I guess. It dollies in. Yeah.
I left that life behind.
During the I left that life behind moment, but man, oh man. Just the detail on these characters. And again, the compression rate. I think the sun stays pretty true this entire time. I don't think there's a whole lot of shadow play going on here because it's a bright, sunny day the whole time. The only thing that I was noticing here, let me go back to the big wide shot when they walk in on each other, is the difference in the characters' appearance. Obviously, we've seen Varrock for a while now, and no shoulders. He has shoulder pads off. But the one thing I noticed is how, obviously, Thrall looks still very orcish with his new armor and his very Frostwolfy stuff. I wonder if we're going to get any story in the game about the wolf pelts he's used, if it's something that was close to him or just a wolf in general, because there really isn't any way a Frostwolf orc connects to Nagrand directly, because there's no Frostwolf wolves in Nagrand, unless I'm mistaken in my lore. So where did he get those pelts, though? But there is a very, very big difference here, because I was looking for lighting play, because usually what directors of cinematography do is, this is very much like the scene from Gladiator. This is the wheat fields. I wonder if they have a Gladiator vibe or a Gladiator inspiration of when Leonidas in the dream sequence is like leaving and coming home. But the shadows here, if you notice that the way the sun and the architecture on his orc hut, which looks pretty realistic to like a Warcraft 3 orc hut, is that Thrall is very in the light, but his face is in the darkness, right? Because the sun's behind him, obviously. Conscious decision. But then all this part of the building, his orc hut, is all in the light, and Thrall is standing in the light. It's very prominent. And all this side of the building is obviously in shadow. What that is where Saurfang is standing, to show the two differences in these characters. And I get some comments on these videos before, like, it's too, no, don't think of that. Go back and watch the Marc Messenger interview. I talked to him about lighting choices, and these are conscious things, because cinematographers think about this, because they are painting their unsaid picture while the animators are painting their picture, and the writers are then saying their picture, right? It's all, and then the sound design and the composer is painting their picture. But the black and white there is pretty noticeable in that scene. But again, the entire scene is super lit. But the choice to put Thrall's back to the light so his face is in shadow, whereas Saurfang's is not the entire time, is just kind of a subtle little nod. Just a subtle little thing. The gladiator feel right there is so crazy. Also, he's just sharpening. He's not sharpening that axe. He's just probably sharp. It looks like a sickle, probably for yeah. It looks like a scythe for the wheat. Going frame by frame in a YouTube video is not going to show you anywhere near the detail. Look at his fingernails. Oh, and the glove detail. Good gracious. Unbelievably ridiculous. I mean, if you go back to the wide shot here, so that is definitely Oshugun here. So we're in Outland Draenor. That's where Thrall ran away to, right? Still weird, like the time travel stuff just kind of being okay. I guess it's just a portal, but it's still our timeline. This is not alternate universe Draenor, I imagine, because that's all overrun with crazy lightbound orcs and whatever. But this, what I first reacted to when I was watching, look at those old grandpa hands. What a story this man could tell. Look at the bindings on his bracers. Look at the particular on that one. Just the touch of how strong an orc hand is and how fragile the land he's growing this wheat on. But that's, gosh. There's a lot going on in this scene. So we open with the wheat field. And this is a slight, maybe a little on the nose nod to the Horde. That Saurfang has given everything for the Horde. What he tells Anduin in the previous cinematic. And seeing how it all crumbles away in his hand. Because look at his expression. His expression is very, very... I don't think this is all about Thrall right here. It's very much a horde crumbling away. Because Saurfang is one of, if not one of the longest standing and oldest members of the Horde in the current timeline. And it all keeps crumbling away. He has hair on his knuckles. Good gracious. Look at the fingernails, man. Yeah, and you can see eye detail is crazy. He has a furrowed brow in this scene, signifying sorrow and loss and sadness, and then his eyes will blink. And then he has the Saurfang grumpy brow, the determined brow in that small moment there. Just his resolve. I guess just wheat fields to me in a cinematic sense just immediately ring out gladiator. But that's what I thought here too. I wonder if this area exists in game to look like this at all. Probably not specifically, because this is now timeline, but if you go to Outlands Nagrand, then it's obviously still back in Burning Crusade timeline. So he's got 2 huts. There's no one else around. Yeah, where are all the void elementals or whatever that were around the... They're not there. I do like the intercuts with the title card here, too, because you set up the wide shot, and then you go to your mid to closes. Who else got super crazy feels? Oh, I didn't notice that. He has a bit of like a sigh head nod. Almost like an oh no. I mean, it's like an old friend comes to visit you, but you're busy and you want to see them, but you don't want to talk to them. You want to wave at them, but he keeps walking closer to you. I don't know. Also, the whole like stalking the rogue part, the rogues are coming to kill Thrall. Is that actually set up in game? I haven't played the Horde campaign as of this current recording.
This is home now.
There's a lot of stuff that is incredibly detailed about just watching eye movements in these cinematics. We actually harped on that a lot for the Lost Honor one in the prison cell. You watch Anduin's eyes. A lot of stuff is told in Warcraft cinematics by eye movements. They really, really, really go with the unspoken eye movements. Also, orc culture, the older orcs get, the longer their tusks grow, right? Because Thrall is still young. very, very young, even though he's a big boy now compared to what he used to look like. He looks like he's been working a whole lot more now that he is just a physical orc and doesn't have ties to the elements anymore, and I hope they stick with that plot point. As a shaman player, I'm not... Warrior Thrall can come back, which is kind of like where he originally started, Gladiator Thrall, when he was imprisoned with being a slave to Blackmoor, that kind of stuff, way back in the day, when he learned to be what he is. But no elemental ties, because there's no elements working the land or anything in that regard. But man, even like the eye, like...
Not far.
Because he doesn't trust him at first. That's definitely a I don't trust you look. The squinty eyes and the furrow, a little bit there. Even though Saurfang's tone is just kind of wondering, and he's not really... I think it's more that Thrall doesn't know what's going on. I just noticed that too. This world part, I wonder if they're trying to signify that Varrock is just looking around at the area of Nagrand Outland, or if he's actually also trying to look for the rogues, since we know that the rogues are coming.
Looks good.
Oh, look at the friendly eyes.
Wrong.
Going back to the wheat fields again to show the breaking apart, broken. Even the dialogue mirrors that. The floating pieces of Outland are still really neat. Maybe in the next expansion or so we can get a an update to Outland.
Do you know what she's done while you've been hiding?
Oh, actually, Thrall looks down at his son's at Varrock's pendant. Because it's the Horde symbol as well. He left that life behind. Man, I wonder, this must resonate differently with, and this has also been a back and forth, that a lot of the Horde players right now, and I've seen this on Twitter quite a bit, is that, man, Horde are getting so many cinematics in this expansion. Well, this is a very Horde-centric storyline, because in some ways, I think that Blizzard is trying to... Yes, it's kind of a Garrosh storyline, but I think that Blizzard feels bad about that storyline and wants one that's way more fleshed out and actually has a lot more nuance to the characters involved and a lot denser story. Because the Garrosh one was definitely like a 180 all of a sudden, even though it kind of was in his character, but not really. Sylvanas has been set up like this since vanilla. But makes a bit more sense, even though until we get more of the Vol'jin story and the whole Loa of Death stuff and why she was appointed war chief anyway, we won't really know the back and forth if we ever find that out. But the Alliance had a lot of cinematics. We opened with Legion cinematic with Varian, right? And we had a lot of cutscenes that were very Alliance-focused last expansion, so now we have a lot of things that are Horde-focused. Blizzard can only tell so many stories so often, and these cinematics take 4 to 6 plus months to make at a time. This was planned out 2 years ago to make this. So they already knew where they were going with these, because they had to be making this one and Lost Honor and Old Soldier and the opening cinematic and potentially an Azara cinematic coming up soon. Azara, that's a different boss. So if we're getting other cinematics, they have to have these all in the pipeline years ahead of time for the storytelling to happen. We just get them randomly as we do. Also, what are the physics on orc hair growing? Because Thrall was bald last time we saw him. Maybe being tied to the elements makes you bald, and then not tied to the elements anymore makes your hair grow back. Some of the facial animations are so incredible, but there's not a whole lot of cinematic grammar I'm seeing, because it's just shot, reverse shot, wide shot, shot, reverse shot, wide shot. The scene with the rogue coming in, I don't know why the rogue is... Well, I guess the rogue is running because they can see them together and they want to stop the whole ordeal. But again, if this is tied to the story in game, I'm not entirely sure. But I've been also rambling for quite long enough. Is there anything else that sticks out? People were talking about how they use the actual sound for stealth. And this is the first canonical time we've ever seen stealth in a cinematic, right? because it is definitely kind of like a magic effect. Almost a bit like a shapeshift. And I wonder if rogue stealth is more to do with their armor than the rogue themselves, because rogues are very much more martial prowess. Are these both females? I think they're both female assassins too. Just because of the way the legs look, and I can't really tell the chest on this one. They're both females. I actually put Thrall in a still pose. Oh, because that's the one on the roof. You see the roof wiggle? Because that one comes off the roof. And that's a smoke bomb. It's really neat. And then you can see the rogue in the smoke bomb for, how many frames is this? Like maybe 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 25? About a second of footage, and then they're out. But interesting. Also, that butt, though. It puts a lore spin on stealth that I wonder if it's... Because the rogues aren't magical oriented really at all, but I wonder if their armor is, and that's how they stealth. Because it's just live action camouflage. We do see the plague in that one strike that hit Saurfang's belt there. That these are plague laced weapons and some poison or whatever. But I wonder, that's probably the exact same plague that is being used. And right there on his bracer, you see the plague again. Interesting. That cut is really, really fast between the two of them. Also, Saurfang completely messes up part of Thrall's fence there and does his best Karen impression. Also, completely one-shot, by the way. How many warriors can one-shot rogues nowadays? I don't really see anything there. And then the intercut back over there. I don't think Thrall gets hit at all with anything. Yeah, he just grabs the... Oh, gosh. Do you see how close that got to Thrall's face? Also, that is a really fast stab. Who wants to do math on how fast that is? Because that is one frame of animation. That is how fast that is to help illustrate the motion of the rogue stabbing at Thrall. They just cut out frames. They animated a start and stop point for that. And Thrall still was there to catch the dagger. Right by his forehead. Those are interesting little parts when you look at animation frame by frame to help illustrate speed. There just isn't frames there. They don't animate the whole thing and speed it up. They just, your eyes when you're watching it normally fill in the gaps. Because these are shot, this is not 60 FPS. I don't even know if it's probably just 30, but I would have to math out how many frames are in each second. Let me look real quick here, because now I'm curious. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh! So it's drop frame, probably 24:9. Interesting. So these are cinematic 24 frames per second. 24:25, 24:95, 24:97, somewhere in that mix. Interesting. It's another reason why a lot of frames are going to be blurred as you look through, due to the fact that there are only so many in every second. And again, it's YouTube compression. YouTube compression for sure. And that's the vanish. That's just the strangest thing, because it's very much like when the cat transforms in the original cinematic. And we talk about this as well with Terran Gregory in the Terror of Darkshore, that when they tried to recreate this style in a in-game cinematic of a shapeshift, they had to go back to the original World of Warcraft vanilla cinematic to see how they originally did it back in the day. And rogue vanishing is, yeah, it definitely scales through their body, and it does start from her chest. I wonder if it's more that the canon of how rogue stealth is it's in their armor. It's like an enchantment or something along those lines. Completely wrecked. I'm not going to go frame by frame anymore. I think I've looked at a lot of little things. There's definitely a lot of facial expressions between the two of them. the realization into this slight smile, but then you know Thrall's not happy about this, but he knows what he must do. I hope we get some Thrall story about his family, though. So, in a similar way, this scene also, God of War, the new recent God of War, when Kratos goes back to get the Blades of Chaos, actually. The game's been out for a while, okay? No spoiler owns. He has them hidden under part of his house. And he breaks away and pulls out the chain, starts wrapping them around his bracers again. And then you unlock the Blades of Chaos later on in the game. This is kind of similar to that scene. So you can see where different cinematic directors and storytellers do draw inspiration from other works and other sequences to sort of adapt them to what they're trying to tell in their story. The fact that Thrall hid this, and this is under the entire boulder that he put that anvil on. If we go back, the anvil is sort of, I guess, welded and slash chained down to this giant rock. And the whole rock, this entire rock stump is what he hid it under. And how much time do you think he leg presses? How heavy do you think this thing is? That he pushes this all away, that he hides his past, or part of his past. That smile is real good. The smile nod from Saurfang right there. I mean, don't reveal that it's not Doomhammer, because you can't see it when he swings there. You just see a handle until the very last bit, and it's just a Frostwolf axe. That actually has good proportions and compared to the two-handed axes in game right now that look really short. But the Frostwolf, like blue gems kind of on this as well. Again, wolf fur most likely, or fur of something in that regard. And then spikes because he's an orc. Dang, though. That was really good. I don't know how much I went back and forth between like cinematic and film nerdy stuff besides just trying to call out different things that I noticed based on the edit itself. And the fact that it's 24. It's 24 FPS. 24 frames per second. So that's cinematic standard, like film oriented. It's not even 30, which is probably also why a bit of the quality is super lost on YouTube because of how crushed it all gets. But I think that's really about all I can go over right now. That's a lot. I don't want to drag this on. Some of my other film nerd reaction and breakdowns are quite lengthy, but I also do those in different formats. I kind of combine the two into this one. So let me know what you think about this, or if I gleaned anything that you may have not known. There is, I know Nobble has a video out about this. I know Taliesin made a video about going into sort of his take on the more deeper notices of like the lore and the story and whatnot. But I'm not going to go over that because I'm just going over the nerdy film stuff and trying to pick apart different techniques and styles and things and grammar that I pick up on in these. But overall, again, I think the references are there. There's some Gladiator. There's some God of War. There's some sort of that Wall-E style, less is more dialogue. Because previous cinematics have a lot of dialogue in them, but this one definitely had a far shake less. But again, you can go check out the interview I did with Marc on the previous cinematic, or the one with Terran and his cinematic, or any of the previous cinematics that I also have done a Bay Talks about the Warbringers, as well as the Lost Honor Old Soldier combination between myself and Marc. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening and going on this journey with me. And hopefully I can keep doing more of these in the future. A Jara cinematic. But I will see you all in the next Bay Talks about something or whatever that I do videos on YouTube. Otherwise, I'll see you on the live stream. Links down below to all the other things and the stuff. Thanks for watching.